That you have. So now let's talk more about the zodiac. What is the original concept of the 12-fold division of the zodiac in Vedic astrology? And Parashara, he tells us the following. The imperceptible Vishnu Janardana is the Kala Rupa figure of time, whose limbs are considered the rashis beginning from the ram. So the zodiac is called the Kala Rupa, or the figure of time. It is actually also known as the Kala Purusha, or the personification of time. And let's first talk now about the Kala Rupa aspect of the zodiac. So we know that, of course, the zodiac refers to, the sun's apparent movement around the earth, right? And this is also how we measure time, right? Because it's the sun, as it revolves around the earth, that basically becomes the foundation of time for us on earth. And luckily for us, that movement of the sun around the earth is actually the most stable cycle of all the planets in our solar system, right? All the other planets, they sort of vary a little bit in time as they go, around the earth. Even the moon is also varies a little bit, but the sun is this reliable and steady planet that comes around at the same time every 365.2422 days. So when we are looking at the zodiac, we are really looking at this Earth-Sun cycle, right? That's the most important cycle in our solar system. And it is the foundation of time for us on Earth, and that's why we call it the zodiac the Kala Rupa, or the figure of time. And we can, easily, ultimately measure time on Earth here actually by using the sun, right? How do we do that? Well, through the rising and the setting of the sun can we measure time here on Earth, right? When the sun enters Aries, or the ascending equinox, right, at that time, this is when the days and nights are the same long. They're 12 hours long each. And then when the sun moves further north, towards, Cancer, or the northern solstice, at that time, every day, the days get longer and the nights get shorter in the northern hemisphere, and in the southern hemisphere the nights get longer and the days get shorter, right? Until, of course, the sun reaches the northern solstice, at which time, of course, the days are going to be the longest in the north, okay? And then, of course, the sun then changes direction. It moves south from there. And as it moves every day, again, in the northern hemisphere, then the days are going to get shorter and the nights are going to get longer until they're the same long in when the sun enters Libra, right, at the descending equinox. And then finally the sun, approaches the southern solstice, or Capricorn, and at which point, of course, the days will be the longest in the southern hemisphere and the nights the shortest, right? And the opposite will be for the northern hemisphere. Now, what is happening also, of course, at that time, as the sun moves into the north, of course, the angle of the sun's light, of course, coming to the earth changes, right? And what actually happens is, the more that the sun moves north, the more that sunlight actually becomes, focused actually in the northern hemisphere. That's why it gets warmer and warmer the more it approaches the northern solstice. And that sun, at the same time, also it spreads out more because of that angle of the sun's light on Earth. It spreads out, actually, that light, it spreads out more in the southern hemisphere, and that's why it just gets colder and colder the more that the sun goes north. And of course, this has to do with the tilt of the Earth on its axis by 23 degrees, okay? And also, of course, the more that the sun goes down south, at that point, also what's happening is then the more the light gets then focused, because of the Earth's tilt on its axis by 23 degrees, it gets more focused in the southern hemisphere, right? And that's why then when the sun is in the in the southern solstice, this is then actually when it is the hottest in the south, and this is also then when it is the coolest in the north, because then the sunlight is, it spreads out more, and that's why it just can't heat up the globe in the north at that time. And so in this way, the sun sort of creates the different length of daytime and of nighttime. It creates the seasons and all these changing in temperatures and actually conditions on Earth. And of course, this also happens hand in hand with the motion of the moon. A year, of course, comes about by the sun's monthly movement through the signs, right? And it takes the sun 1 month to go through a sign, and of course 12 months to go around the zodiac, whereas the moon basically daily moves through one nakshatra, and in this way it goes it visits all the 27 nakshatra in 1 month. And so we have sort of these two cycles, going on. That cycle, that monthly cycle of the moon, the monthly cycle of the sun going through, the signs. But we also have the daily cycle of the moon through the nakshatras as well. And although, yes, the sun-moon cycle, of course, is very important and is responsible for, creating our day-to-day life. But whatever really might go on in our daily life, ultimately it's really centered on that sun-earth cycle, or that steady movement of the sun as it appears to revolve around the earth. Now that we know about this Kala Rupa, or this figure of time being the zodiac, let's talk about the zodiac as being known as the Kala Purusha, or actually the personification of time. Right, so the zodiac is considered this circle of time in Vedic astrology that is also symbolized by the cosmic man, okay? And that cosmic man has, in Aries, his head, in Taurus, the face, in Gemini, his arms, all the way down to Pisces, his feet, okay? And so in Vedic astrology, the 12 zodiac signs are actually considered those 12 body parts actually of the cosmic man, or Vishnu, right? And so in Vedic astrology, we can actually study the signs of the zodiac by understanding how Aries is the head of the cosmic man and what that means, or Cancer being his chest and what that means, or Capricorn being his thighs, and so on. And we will actually talk in depth about all these body parts and how they symbolize actually what the signs are all about. And the body is actually very important, because we can learn everything about life if you're simply able to listen and decipher what the body wants to tell us, right? And we will see that the signs in the context of the body parts are really equally important as the signs in the context of those earthly creatures. And so we will talk in depth about the descriptions given by Parashara about those body parts. And of course also we will talk about, those various, descriptions given about the earthly creatures. And in this way, when we combine the meanings of both, this is when we get really amazing insights about the rashis. Now, Parashar tells us that we should conceive of the zodiac as this cosmic person called Vishnu. And the body of the cosmic person actually consists of the rashis, and his consciousness is actually represented by the planets. And this is a very important distinction that we have to understand. When we talk about rashis, then we talk about our body, about the bodies of others, right? The world around us, the things of this world. In other words, it is the rashis rule our concrete reality. Now, when we talk about the planets, then we talk about our subjective, conscious experience of who we are and the world around us, okay? And so the planets are really those various parts of our ego mind that allow us to perceive this world through our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, and our desires. And that's why we use the planets to analyze a person's psychology. And we use the signs to talk about a person's concrete life, right? And so in the horoscope, we look at the signs and the houses to find out about all the concrete things and events in a person's life. And we also actually, judge the various peoples and relatives in our life, and perhaps also their body and their health, right? But when we want to know more about how we feel about those people in our life, or how we feel about the things in our life and what we do, then we need to look at the planets, right? And similarly also, if you want to know about a person in your life, right? If you want to know about their concrete life, then look at the signs and houses that are connected to it, right? Or if you want to know more about how they think, their psychology, right? Their beliefs and attitudes about life, then look at the planets that are connected to those people. Right, so the idea of Vedic astrology is that there's this absolute cosmic person who has manifested as everything, in creation, in a concrete way through the signs, and who has manifested our individual, unique appreciation and perception of the world through the planets. And Parashar has also described this cosmic person as Janardana, or he who causes man to fear and worry. So, how can we understand this? The underlying reason for us to fear is because of time, right? We know our time is limited. It will run out eventually, and we only have so much time to get the job done, right? Eventually we are going to die, right? And so Vishnu is really manifesting the zodiac, which is the circle of time, to manifest our fate, right? Through the medium of time. And that, of course, causes somewhat of fear and stress to us. And that is why Parashar actually describes, Vishnu also as Janardana, which is a little bit more of a tough name actually when we talk about this circle of time, because it causes us stress and worry. However, this is now here also that power of Vedic astrology, because it gives us the tools to understand the laws of this world, and to give us, the tools to live the most fulfilling and successful life possible, right? Because if we understand how this world functions, then we can live our life the right way, and as a result, we can not only attract the best life, people, and relationships that the world can offer, but we also learn to be happy at every moment. Okay? And so Vedic astrology is very powerful because it is your personal, or we could even say personalized guide of self-development, transformation, and ultimate success, right? It can give you everything. And it just depends on you how much you can take.